Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to game number 2 in this best of 3 in between TheMista and Beastyqt. This is the home map of Beasty, and it is Danube River. Delhi civilization is banned, so neither of these players can pick that. And as such, we will have Beasty picking the Chinese over here on the right side of the map, and up north, we will have TheMista picking the French in red. So very different approaches in between these two players. French often considered the kings of the sea with their hawks. On the other hand, Chinese, a civilization that specializes in late game, and on this map, where you mostly have to protect this choke point and your fishing eco, you can really justify the Chinese being a good civilization pick because you definitely have a lot of safety early on. So early weaknesses of not having any kind of power unit in feudal age, for example, don't really show that much. You can get to a very nice castle age timing with the clock tower. You can even play Song Dynasty 2 Town Center Boom and just focus on protecting on your fishing eco. So there's a lot of things that you can do with the Chinese over here. Ultimately, I feel like that's the more intriguing civilization selection out of the two. French is a little more straightforward and it's a very powerful civilization. But especially if TheMista isn't playing aggressive enough, Beasty could easily stall this game out and just drag this out to an extent where Fire Lancers will become a thing. And when that happens, that's going to be very difficult to fight. So for Mista, he needs to play pretty aggressive over here, otherwise he could be in trouble. Now you see, Beasty has added a second scout over here, so he's trying to deny the fishing eco of his opponent. And he does so because he himself has not added a single fishing ship up until now. So he's trying to delay it as much as possible. He also built it all the way back here, so he's trying to keep it as safe as possible, as far away from the opponent's combat ships as possible, because, well, he spawned all the way out here. If he just walks out here for a dock, it takes way less time for Mista to get there and start killing his fishing eco, as compared to building a dock over here. For now, the scouts aren't really doing much at this point, so you see, Mista isn't really sweating this one this much. At some point, I wouldn't be surprised to see him adding a scout, and indeed, that's exactly what he's doing right now. So, we're gonna have 2 scouts out, and that should be enough to discourage these scouts from taking down this dock. So really, Mista doesn't have to be that much worried about this one right now. He still obviously doesn't want to lose that dock, but for now, he is perfectly fine. So, you see, Beasty is dancing back and forth. He sees the 2 scouts, so he knows exactly that at some point, he's gonna have to retreat from this position, and he's looking to get the first hit in. That's the other thing, because whoever gets the first hit in is going to have the edge in this battle. Instead, Beasty is going to add scout number 3, and now things are heating up for Mista because he's going to have to add the scout himself. Otherwise, he's going to lose that dock. One of the best ways you can fight French is denying their hawks completely by destroying the dock, and that's exactly what we're seeing Beasty trying to do over here. Obviously, every scout you add, you will sacrifice a villager for it. But on a map where you have fishing eco going, it's not the end of the world. And you see, you have the 3rd scout now coming in for Mista. Wouldn't be surprised to see even a 4th one for Beasty. He's still trying to burn that dock down, trying to set it on fire. But ultimately, even if you set it on fire, you can pull a villager here for Mista. I don't think that this dock is going down from TheMista here. He's repelling that attack of scouts right now. A 4th scout is coming in even, so that should be enough to decide the outcome of this battle. Keep in mind that micro is crucial here, because if you mismicro your units and you lose 1 scout over your opponent at the beginning, you could be in trouble, because then suddenly he has the scout number advantage and you have to sacrifice a villager to make another scout. So the micro is extremely important over here, because every scout you lose is basically a villager lost as well, because you sacrifice the villager to make that scout. Now Mista is the one moving forward with his own scouts here. Looks like Beast is going to pull his villager from the dock. He knows that he won't be able to keep that villager alive. And with the scouts trying to get behind this dock over here, I wonder if you're going to see a forward tower at some point by TheMista. It's always a possibility, trying to tower the back of the opponent's dock. In fact, oftentimes you see players placing a tower behind their own docks as a preemptive measure to try and counter such an action from the opponent. As things stand, the dock from Beasty is getting burnt down slow and steady. It is 40 per volley of torches, so it's not going to take a ton of time for Mista to burn this dock down, but as you see, Beasty has added the 4th scout as well, so once again, we're back to where we came from, and now I think Beasty might have been thinking about just going for a dock of Mista. Mista's dock was heavily damaged, so he could have thought about, okay, I can just make a run for it and destroy this, but then he thought twice, and in the end, instead he adds a 5th scout, So he's going to be able to fight this off. There is a sneaky villager coming forward from Mista though, and one of the clever things that he's doing right now is that he's pulling the scouts of Beasty towards his base. And with that, he can add the 5th scout himself, which is just now coming in, and also sneak a tower up on the fishing eco of the opponent. This tower won't be able to deny much, but I think it's more like a staging ground for a second tower to come in the future. Now, you're going to have bows coming in here for Beasty to try and prevent the Hawks from breaking in, but that's where the Hawks come into play. Hawks having a lot of building attack as well. So while galleys don't perform that well against Vows, Hawks will do a decent amount of damage against them, so it's a lot easier to get through Vows with them as compared to using galleys. The first scout goes down here from TheMista, and as I said, losing those scouts hurts because now if you want to have an even scout number with your opponent, you have to add 1 from your town center, which means that you sacrifice 1 villager. Mista is going to pull a repair villager though. He needs to make sure that his dock doesn't go down, and this is the right way of doing things. You micro back and forth, you just want to buy yourself time until you get that school of cavalry going. On that school of cavalry, you can then start adding a lot more scouts, but probably a horseman is the best choice. Hawks will probably start popping out for Mista whenever he can afford them. Currently, he's a little low on the wood department, also not spectacular on gold, because he's adding a Royal Knight. Now, a Knight will 100% decide the outcome of this battle. I think if he wanted to preserve some gold, he could have gone for a Horseman instead. And as things stand, Mista is a little late pulling that second repair villager, and the dock is gonna go down. That's quite frustrating for Mista, because he really wanted to keep that dock alive. Now his fishing eco is going to be idle. Tower's coming in though for him, and he's grabbing the arrow slits. He's doing something very similar to what he did before. Having 5 on stone also means that he could add a second town center pretty soon if he wants to. Obviously, at this point, he won't be able to push with Hawks, but being able to get towers up here is also quite impactful. He's going to jump into that tower with the villagers, and now you have some knights coming in, so those scouts won't be able to torch down towers. Towers with the arrow slits will do some damage to the fishing ships, but they won't do an awful lot. This is where you will garrison your scouts into those towers for Mista for increased firepower. Also, arrow slits coming in here. The Barbican of the Sun was placed by Beasty to protect this choke point over here. Also made some walls to prevent the knights from crossing. So as things stand, he is going for the first barracks just now to get a couple of spearmen going. Towers will be garrisoned by some knights and some scouts. And the Mista has now rebuilt that dock. The next question for him, is he grabbing a hawk? Or are we going to see a second town center potentially? We see some knights slowly popping out as Beasty is going to start walling himself up. This map just plays to his strengths so much with all those bows, all that turtling. For now, his food economy is way better, of course, because Mista's fishing eco has been idle for a long time. That should even out in the long run. And it looks like we're going to have another tower coming in here by the Mista. So he keeps on pushing this one, but we already have a junk on the way as well. So with that junk coming out, this tower is going to get temporarily denied, although the junks don't perform that well against towers. So it's gonna take a lot of time to take those down. Scouts once again swooping in, trying to burn down that dock, and right now Mista doesn't have a knight here to fight this off. He's sending one back over here. Meanwhile, the junk pops out, and I do believe that the villager did survive. Indeed, the villager is still alive, so the junk wasn't able to snipe it down, and as you see, the towers do a ton of damage against the junks, so you gotta be very careful when you micro them. Beasty will get some hits on his scouts over here by the knight, but ultimately, he isn't able to destroy that dock. On the other side, while this junk is being repaired outside the range of those towers, you are going to have another outpost coming up here from Mista, and this is going to be the big one, because this third one is going to be able to reach the bottom of this dock over here. The villager has to run back. Beasty tried to kill that, but as you see, the moment he moves out with that junk, he's going to get that being shot upon by the towers, and the towers will do quite a lot of damage to those arrow ships. So in the end, the junk goes down, and now you have a third tower in here for Mista that will soon probably be reinforced with the arrow slits as well. Was almost completed already for Beasty, so Beasty isn't messing around. This is going to be a Song Dynasty play. As you see, the Barbican of the Sun is already completed, the Imperial Academy is up now, so the only thing we're missing is stone for a second town center. There is no stone being mined right now by Beasty. Villagers are being pulled though to wall off this crossing as well, so he wants to make sure that this part of the fishing eco that he's just now building up is going to be safe as well, because I think at some point he's going to have to pull his fishing ships to that side. He's already sending a villager out, though. make a tower there as well. So Mista knows exactly that his opponent will have to move elsewhere to fish, and that elsewhere has to be the other side. So a tower will come in here in this corner. Not a single Hawk out just yet for the Mista. He really doesn't want to go for any kind of combat ships here. He just wants to play with towers. As things stand, the fishing ships are being pulled all to the right side. But as I said, Mista is one step ahead. He knows exactly that's happening, and he's already making the towers happen. So, at this point, Beast is going to have some idle time on his fishing eco. The bigger thing here, though, is that this pulls those fishing ships closer to potential Hawks. And what I would love to see from Mista is maybe a dock attempted here. Because with a dock there, he could potentially get Hawks right in the face of the opponent, or even this side, if you think about it. You could get some Hawks in, and even control that choke point. So there's a lot of options over here I feel like that Mista could do. Looks like the villager here from Beastyqt is getting intercepted by the scouts and the wolves. It's unlikely to make it back home, although it's not super far away. So with the help of the Barbican and the Sun, this villager might be saved. And indeed, Beast is gonna get that villager safe. Tower coming in with the arrow slits as well. Another one from the Mista. The most important thing, though, is that Beast still has 14 fishing ships working. In fact, there is 3 more out here, so it's combined for 17. Other side, you have approximately the same count for the Mista, so the food ecos are rather comparable. Spearman now coming in to try and burn down that tower, but that's not going to work out because you already have arrow slits on it. Multiple wolves as well harassing these vills, but that's why the arrow slits help a lot here, taking those down. Now, villagers will move out, once again going for the towers. Beasty sending his spearman forward, though he's looking to burn down some of those docks, but there is already archers coming from the Mista. Beasty reaching Castle Age first, though. Mista is not in castle yet, and with the junk out there, Mista's tower is also gonna get denied. Spearman might actually poke down the villager as well, so for the first time in this game, it's going to be a little more difficult for Mista to get those towers up, especially, as I said, with Castle Age already in for Beasty. He was in Song Dynasty for a long time, but he has played one town center for the time being. Towers will be denied for now, and for Mista, he's starting to wall himself up. Now, Mista is playing 2 town centers, so part of the reason why he is not going up to Castle Age yet is because he is instead going for a 2 TC boom. On the right side, these fishing ships are still operational and being repaired by the docks, so despite the fact that the towers are there, they're not really accomplishing much. Wars coming in now for Mista. At this point, it's 61 villagers as opposed to 75. Mista having the lead. Mista having 75 villagers and even making a 3rd town center is just absolutely crazy. He's going up with the guild hall for the time being, and he's still mining stone. So at this point, I think Mista is realizing that, okay, this is turning into a boom war, so might as well go for a crazy economy here. Now, obviously, Song Dynasty will be able to compensate for the otherwise slower villager production of the Chinese, and now you see Beasty is also heavy on the stone department. But I kind of feel like at this point, the biggest problem for Mista will be that he's getting into Imperial Age and he's going to be facing the Chinese, one of the best late game or best Imperial Age civilizations in this game. Still not a single ship coming out from Mista, which is just a little surprising. He could have made a dock here and got some hulks out, or they smashing those fishing ships in the face, and we've not seen that so far. Couple more fishing ships coming out for Mista. Spearman out now for Beasty. Beasty has been mining stone like crazy, so there's a chance that we're going to see some additional town centers or stone walls. Knowing Beasty, there is going to be a lot of those stone walls. Mista up to Castle Age right now. Beasty is currently at 68 villagers. Mista is up to 88 right now. And with Castle Age, it only takes 16 seconds for him to train those vills. The guild hall is currently set on food, which is pretty common before you start adding farms, although in a map where you have a ton of fishing eco, you probably don't need that. Villager crawling all the way up to the left side. Makes me wonder if we're going to see an attempt from Mista to try and take this sacred site. Because this is something we haven't talked about. He's got quite a lot of towers near this one, so there should be no problem for him to take that. And if he somehow secures this one, there's a legitimate chance for him to just go for a sacred site victory, or at least force his opponent to make a move. These towers are still doing quite a lot, and this junk might actually get picked off over here. Beasty retreats in the last moment. Another tower comes up for Mista. Now that he's up to Castle Age instead of the tower emplacement or the arrow, emplacement, he can go for the Springald. That's a lot more expensive on the stone department, but obviously it's going to do a lot more against those ships as well, so that is something you can consider. And it looks like Mista is also slowly walling up here. Doc finally coming in here for Mista. We'll see if Beast is going to do anything about that. For now, it looks like there is no single combat ship coming out. And this is where we will have to talk about the combat ships of these civilizations, because late game, those Baoshuan could actually come into play. One of the strongest ships in late game, especially for Chinese having longer range on them, as opposed to the Carracks of the French. Of course, you still have the Hawks out there. Galleass is not something that you see basically at all. And it looks like, for now, Beast is collecting relics as his monk is being pursued by a wolf. Speaking of wolves, the lady here is also taking the fight against a wolf. And now, the big question is, what is this lady doing here? Is she going for the sacred side? You could make a monastery here, have a monk, and then capture that, or just stonewall this off and go for that. Because if you look at this narrow choke point, this is perfect for stonewalling here for the lady. Multiple layers of stonewalls coming in here for Mista. Some seem a little redundant, so I'm not exactly sure what the game plan is here. Meanwhile, demolition ship comes in from the Mista, and that is going to sink quite a lot of fishing ships as well as a junk out there. There is a dock on the left side now. Mista's got a dock on the right side as well. This demolition ship apparently is just trying to make out with those fishing ships or something like that, because as things stand, it's absolutely doing nothing. So, do you mind just exploding or something like that? Looks like it just doesn't care. Maybe increase his salary or something like that, so he does something. Imperial Age on the way for a Mista as he's getting another bombard ship on the left side. Right side, this one is still just chilling over here. At this pace, this tower is going to slowly kill it by the time it decides to explode. And it looks like these demolition ships will slowly wipe out the fishing eco of Beastie. So, not only is Beastie behind in terms of villagers, he's also going to lose his fishing eco. Update on this demolition ship on the right side is still not doing anything. And now, guess what? Mista is going to start walling his opponent in. Because at this point, you already have multiple layers of stone walls. Might as well go for some very aggressive stone walls up front. Mista is up to Imperial Age, so is Beastie though, and Beastie is aging up with the Spirit Way. And you guys all know what that means. You're going to have some stables surrounding it. Do we have Yuan Dynasty already? The game is a little slow to catch up when you switch POVs, so we'll have to find the landmarks ourselves if we want to figure out if it's Yuan Dynasty or not. But it seems like it's not Yuan yet. We have 3 town centers for Beastie as well, so he was able to catch up in terms of villagers. He also got 2 relics. Mista hasn't really been carrying relics so far. On the right side, this demolition ship is still refusing to operate. And despite the fact that we have Imperial Age for either of these players, we're not seeing a ton of cannon ships. But there it is. Super expensive, but it looks amazing and it does a lot of cannon damage. The Baoshuan is about to hit the field, and that's going to destroy those towers in a matter of seconds. Now, one of the weaknesses of the Baoshuan is going to be demolition ships, so you still gotta be careful about that one. Spearman moving to the right side over here. Beastie trying to deny those walls that are coming up in front of his base. Ultimately, he won't be able to deny these stone walls though, so technically, both sacred sites are available. Baoshuan now opening up on those towers, and you see, if it actually decides to fire, it does a ton of damage against buildings. So this dock could go down really fast. You already have Mista coming out with a monk to the middle, and he's probably gonna do the exact same thing. So he's going for those sacred sites right now. Finally, the demolition ship decided to start working, but by that time, the fishing eco is almost irrelevant. Look at that volley of cannon fire out there. Those scouts will have a pretty bad day with all those cannonballs flying towards their head. Looks like we have a Royal Culverin out here. Now, as far as I know, and I think this is something I've seen like once in my life, the Royal Culverins don't do bonus damage against the Baoshuan, because these weapons, they do a bonus damage against siege, but the Baoshuan don't or aren't considered siege. They're just cannon warships, so I don't think the Culverins should work very well against them. They still do their base damage, but they won't do their bonus damage. Sacred Site being captured right now by the Mista. He's fortifying those positions. I think at this point, this one is going to be easily defendable for him, because there's a chance that he's just gonna make some demos and deny crossing over here. Meanwhile, this one is gonna be a little more difficult for him to defend, so I think That's where Beasty has to start working towards. Beasty, he is still in Song Dynasty, so that's no mistake. He hasn't gone up to Yuan Dynasty, no Fire Lancers whatsoever for him. Ancient techniques coming in for him. No pyrotechnics just yet for him, as the Baoshan actually walks into the tower fire, but you see, with the dock repairing it and the firepower it has, it's able to withstand all the arrow fire and just destroy all those towers. There's a demolition ship coming in though, and one thing that you gotta always love, a transport ship, demolition ship now coming in here, completely ignoring that Baoshan that's going to just destroy it. Well, that was underwhelming. Luckily for the Mista, that demolition ship still did quite a lot of damage to that Baoshan, so the tower almost finished it off, but it will just be a tiny bit insufficient. That's annoying because that transport ship was probably meant to transport this sneaky will all the way out here. And if I'm not mistaken, the idea for Mista is to get a bunch of stables behind the opponent's lines. For now, Beasty is walling off these sides, as the sacred sites are now under the control of the Mista. 21:15 is the capture time, so you have 10 minutes from now on to go for that. But guess what? Those Baoshan can just smack buildings in the face. Looks like there was a big explosion over here. I'm not sure if there was a demolition ship coming in or where it came from, because there's just no docks over here for Beasty. The sneaky villager apparently is not gonna be a thing because the Baoshan moves up and sinks that transport. There is still a demolition ship here, so that could potentially destroy this combat ship here before the dock goes down, but that's not even gonna be a thing. Dock goes down to the Baoshan. Meanwhile, we got some Karuks on the battlefield, so it's time to compare those. When it comes to the base damage of the cannons, that's gonna be greater for Beasty's Baoshan for now, but the bigger thing is the range. 8,000 range for the Karuks, and you have 9 for the Baoshan. I think the best thing that that Mista can do against the Baoshan is still demolition ships, because those can easily overrun the Baoshan, especially in such narrow quarters. 5-6 demolition ships can vibe this entire thing out here. Update on the sacred sites, looks like neither of the players are really contesting those as we speak. For Beasty, he's getting some clock tower bombards up, currently only with 10 range. Some palace guards are also on the field. Still Song Dynasty though, not a single Fire Lancer hitting the field just yet. Instead, he's focusing on the siege. On the other side, we're seeing a lot of Royal Culverins out for Mista, supported by some Arbaletriers, so he's not really expecting a lot of Fire Lancers either, otherwise we would see a lot more Spearmen from him. But the Royal Culverins is a clear sign that he wants to snipe down most of those cannon, and that's exactly what I was referring to when I said that demolition ships do quite well against the Baoshan. This is exactly the sight you want to see when you're using demolition ships against those big, clunky, slow combat vessels. Free demos traded to free Baoshan is extremely cost effective here for the Mista. Right now, it looks like Beast is going to start moving up. As expected, he's moving to the left side, which is lightly defended, I would say. Funnily enough, a siege tower could work nicely here for Beasty, because he can just take these walls and then hop out on the other side. There's the first keep coming in for Mista. With the French, he can get his siege, or he can get his production buildings right next to that castle and get a discount. Something to keep monitoring. Now, I feel like the best thing that Beasty can do is to try and maintain some sort of water control, because if he loses that, it's guaranteed that he can't take the middle back. Simply because you're gonna have demolition ships sinking your army. Another wave of demolition ships coming in right now. There's a fishing boat in front as well, and I wonder if this was intentional from Mista. He may have accidentally selected that because it looks very similar to demolition ships, but it's also possible it was an intentional bait. Send the fishing ship forward, and if Beasty is not manually targeting his Baoshan, it's going to get shot first, which means that demolition ships won't take damage behind that. So it might have been very much intentional from the Mista to send the fishing ship first, absorb the damage, and then use the demolition ships to sink that Baoshan that's now heavily damaged. Three minutes elapsed from that sacred site countdown. There's still about 7 to go. Clock tower bombards blasting their way through the walls on the left side. I feel like this sacred site victory is just going to be very short-lived, because this castle has zero chance of holding against these forces. As I said, this one in the middle is very difficult to take control of for Beasty, so he should go for the one on the left side, because that is just very much open. It's very far from the base of the Mista, so it takes quite a lot of effort. Take that. It's a bit of a stalemate over here, which stops the countdown. There is no countdown in the spectator overlay, but you see, as long as both sides have a unit in that sacred site, it's going to stop the countdown. So even if you have Mista controlling that sacred site right now, the countdown isn't going on, so that's going to delay a tiny bit. Boiling oil is going to help here for Mista, but especially with that bombard, which is just crawling up right now, I don't think Mista is going to be able to hold this one, so best case scenario for him is that this is going to be reset, and he can restart that entire process. Given how much effort he put into defending the middle, I kind of feel like it was an underwhelming effort to try and control this sacred site. Villagers were sent to try and save this castle over here, but that's going to be a failure. So ultimately, this sacred site is neutralized, so we're back where we came from. A massive, massive stalemate. Beastyqt is still in Song Dynasty, so that's the only saving grace, I believe, for TheMista, that he's not facing Fire Lancers. Other than that, I really feel like Mista doesn't really have a game plan to win this game. He's at 176 population. He went for the sacred sites, but it never really felt like he wanted to push his opponent. He settled in for a defense, but this left-hand side was just barely defended. So ultimately, now we are in a stalemate position. He hasn't picked up the relics either, which is something that his opponent did, and that's a nice little touch here by Beastyqt. Having 3 relics out there is definitely something that helped here, especially with the Chinese. Looks like the Palace Guards are now moving up. These walls are also up here. In fact, you have double layers, but on this side you don't have anything built up. So there are some weird decisions here from TheMista. Now he's coming in with the demolition ships though, and that's going to be a nice volley. Destroying the Baoshuan. I think the only thing I can think about is that he's trying to blast his way through these walls and go in here. He's got a lot of culverins, obviously that's going to help against the opponent's bombards, but as long as he doesn't have his own bombards, blasting his way through these walls is going to take a lot of effort. He made a new dock though, and that could provide him a chance to land, and he can also make demolition ships, so he can potentially sink Baoshuan, or he can even destroy those walls. Now he's moving up on that side. Infantry from Beastyqt coming in, and I think there is a hole on that wood line. Indeed there is, and that's going to be the first major raid of the game coming in. Quite a few villagers dying from the TheMista, as his demolition ships are still looking to destroy what's left of the docks of Beastyqt. Beastyqt now taking control over that sacred site. Mista seems to be caught off guard by this aggression over here because he doesn't seem to have anything that deals with this, so all of his lumberjacks have to be pulled back because that's the only safe wood line that he had to work with. So now his lumberjacking is going to be in jeopardy, his gold miners will be in jeopardy, and I really feel like, as I said, I just don't see the game plan here. What's the idea? To me, it seemed like he just wanted to win this game on a sacred side terms, but he wasn't expecting any kind of push on the left side because the defenses were minimal, and now you see Beastyqt stonewalling that one. Now all the arballetry and hand cannoneers are pulled back, but obviously that's going to delay the push here through the middle. There is still quite a lot of firepower though. On the other hand, you have quite a lot of Palace Guards on the way. Spearmen will just die to the Palace Guards quite easily. Culverins don't perform that well against the infantry here either, and only a handful of hand cannoneers are in here. But demolition ships are on the way, and that could be a deciding factor. Having the water in your hands is just such a massive advantage. A couple of Palace Guards sneak past, but you see, now Beastyqt is just unable to take fight close to the water because the demolition ships are crawling up. Slowly but surely, all of those Palace Guards are now getting cleaned up, and now I feel like we are seeing an increased level of aggression from TheMista. Baoshuan is now out, but you also have some demolition ships nearby. One of those demos do get taken down, but the Palace Guards are close enough to the water for those demolition ships to really make it work. So if that demo comes in now, it could sink that entire army. For now, it's a little inactive. This is the time to strike for TheMista. That demolition ship can easily sink that entire army and just save all the cannon. On the right side, the dock gets cleaned up, so Baoshuan once again is sailing north. Only one demolition ship for Mista as we speak, but now that he has managed to clean up most of his eco, he's now heading forward with all the arballetry and the hand cannoneers, so he's gonna have a better army over here. Demolition ship coming in. That shouldn't be enough to sink one Baoshuan. Indeed, it's going to damage it quite a bit. Castle being built as we speak, but no more demolition ships right now. Still, Beastyqt's got 135 eco, so quite a lot of population is in economy, and the rest of them is in Palace Guards. No Fire Lancers just yet from him, and with all those crossbowmen and hand cannoneers and some men-at-arms out there, it's quite difficult for those Palace Guards to take a good engagement. Not a single demolition ship right now for Mista, and that's a saving grace for Beastyqt though, because if there was a demo ship here, this army would be gone. All the villagers got slaughtered making this castle though, so not being able to destroy that Baoshuan hurts quite badly. for TheMista right now. He's still cleaning up most of the man-at-arms, and now he's crawling up. Demolition ship coming in here from Beastyqt this time around, and then demolition ship is just enormous. Being able to destroy most of the siege out here, this could be a game-winning move by Beastyqt, and indeed, TheMista taps out immediately. He taps out immediately upon seeing all those siege weapons gone. That is just such a weird decision, because I'm not saying that Mista was leading. In fact, I really feel like he was just on the back foot for a long time, but it didn't really feel like he was going to lose this game in 20 seconds. And while of course he lost a lot of siege, he still had a fairly sizable force. He had like 50-60% map control, so you gotta wonder if that's a little bit of an early GG here. I still think that he just never really had a ton of momentum. He had a tiny bit of momentum just before the demolition ship hit, but ultimately, the biggest problem was that I just never felt like there was a game plan beyond the towers finishing off the opponent fishing eco. The game went long, he went for the sacred sites, but aside from that, we never really saw an intention to push. He never cleaned up the water entirely, and he wasn't able to finish his opponent's base. I still think that he could have tried playing on, though, because despite the fact that he lost a significant portion of his army there, it's not like he was completely dead. So if this was the final game of the set, he probably would have gone